Sony have just launched 4 new products, the A7C Mark II, an A7C R, which is an interesting one, the new 16-35mm f2.8 G Master Mark II, and this nifty little extension grip. There is a lot to talk about here and I haven't got very long to make this at all, so let's just get right into it, look at each product in turn and go through what's new. The new A7C Mark II obviously replaces the original A7C, the C of course standing for compact. But I've been finding it much more useful to think of this as a compact version of the A7 Mark IV, rather than a better version of the original A7C, if that makes sense at all. As it is essentially the same camera as the A7 Mark IV, just pared back to fit inside this compact body. However, it does do a few things which even the A7 Mark IV doesn't do. So in some ways, it's actually better. It has the new AI chip inside, which gives far better autofocus tracking, subject recognition, auto exposure, auto white balance, and even some party tricks like the auto framing mode. It also has better IBIS, Sony is saying 7 stops rather than 5.5. And of course it's smaller and lighter by about 150 grams because of this compact body. There are definitely some areas though where it's not as good as the A7 Mark IV. The big one I miss is the actual viewfinder. This is a 0.39 type 2.3 million dots EVF rather than the A7 IV's 0.5 type 3.6 million dots. And you can really tell the difference. Plus, of course, in this compact body, they place it right over to the left rather than central like on the main camera. It only has one card slot for UHS 2 SD cards. Compared to the original A7C though, it is definitely a clear leap forwards. Far better image quality, better IBIS, better low light, better megapixels, far better autofocus, 3 control dials now, which is nice, and better video features with 4K 60p when cropped and 10-bit 422. It is an interesting one, the A7C Mark II, as I could definitely see some customers choosing this instead of the A7 Mark IV. So if you don't really care about the quality of the viewfinder and only having one card slot, this is arguably the better camera of the two. Then there's the A7C R, which was a real surprise. Just like the A7C Mark II is a compact version of the A7 Mark IV, this one is a compact version of the A7 R5. So that same stunning 61 megapixel sensor and powerful AI processing, but in this smaller body and with a lower price tag as well. And the A7R Mark V is a much newer camera, of course. So here, these two cameras have more in line with each other. They both have the improvements from the AI chip, for example, and that same fantastic image quality. But there are some bigger features missing here from the A7R Mark V than we saw on the A7C Mark II with the A7 IV. This time, the IBIS has been downgraded. You get 7 stops here instead of the 8 on the R5. The stills frame rates are slower as well, 8 frames a second instead of 10. Video is stepped back as well, maxing out at 4K 60p with no crop, so no 8K modes here. However, it is still 10-bit 422 and still has S-Log3 and S-Cinetone. Then it has the same viewfinder as the A7C Mark II and the same single SD card slot. And the same LCD screen as well, which is half the resolution of the rather fantastic one on the A7R5. And here you do really notice the difference if you're used to the A7R Mark V, especially with that fantastic 9 million dot EVF, which is probably the best EVF I've ever used to date on any camera. There is a huge difference when looking through the EVF on the A7R5 and the A7C R. That being said, I'm not really sure I've ever seen a camera like this before. This is essentially one of the most professional cameras on the market today, but squeezed into a really compact and casual feeling body. And that might appeal to quite a lot of people, especially considering the much lower price when compared to the A7R5. The third product is this little extension grip. Now, I'll admit, this is definitely the smallest and least important product on the list, but I actually think it is a very clever little design. The idea is to screw onto these compact style cameras for situations where you'd prefer to have something a little bit more comfortable to hold on to. I don't find my little finger slips off anywhere near as much. It's much nicer to hold. It's really nice to have as an option now. They had one of these before that was a similar idea, but it blocked the battery door and it took up the tripod mounting screw, so it was pretty inconvenient to actually use. This new version is so much better. Firstly, it has this simple turning mechanism to actually mount it onto the camera, and that has another mounting screw hole inside it, so you can still use a tripod plate. Then there's this little switch here which just pings open the whole side of the grip to reveal the battery door so that you can get to your batteries. Fantastic design. Then, last but certainly not least, is the new 16-35mm G Master Mark II. Sony have been going through and updating their main lenses to Mark II versions, and this is exactly as we would expect it to be based on what we've seen from their other lenses. It adds an iris ring and more custom buttons, and is just far better optically all round, with improved sharpness, flaring, and less chromatic aberration as well. It has 4 XD linear motors now for faster and more reliable autofocus. And it is also much lighter at 547 grams, which makes it one of the lightest 16-35s on the market. This means if you have this 16-35mm, the 24-70mm Mark II, and the 70-200 G Master Mark II, the whole setup is 759 grams lighter than it was with the Mark I versions. That's the weight of a mirrorless camera. You could have all 3 lenses and an A1 in your bag, and it is the same weight as just the 3 Mark I lenses by themselves, which is pretty impressive really. So a lot of announcements from Sony today. The 2 compact cameras, a very smart little grip to go with them, and of course the last lens in Sony's lineup of standard f2.8 zooms gets its upgraded Mark II version. All of them of course available now at proav.co.uk, and these new cameras are a pretty fascinating one. I'd love to know what you all think of them, so please do leave a comment down below. Do these compact style of cameras appeal to you? Or would you rather just pay the extra for the A7 Mark IV or the A7R V? I'd love to hear your thoughts, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.